Chapter 1141. The 6 children, who were a little groggy at first, were now full of energy and excitement without any signs of sleepiness. Their voices continued along the trip back home. Orissa was entirely absorbed in their singing and began to clap to the beat. Benjamin's lips quirked up slightly, and he was surprised that the children could sing so well. Gavin began to sing under the guidance of his younger siblings. Tim could not sing very well, but he was adorable. Benjamin took out his phone and recorded their singing secretly. "Isn't their singing good?" Orissa proudly asked. Benjamin fixated his eyes on her and nodded. "Yes." The smile on Orissa's face widened, and she was overjoyed. "Our sweethearts wrote this song." Benjamin raised his eyebrow in surprise, and he was quite taken aback. "They wrote it themselves." "That's right." Orissa nodded, and she felt proud of her children. The more Benjamin listened, the nicer the song sounded. A sense of pride surged within him, and he felt happy for the children. "Once more," Benjamin requested when the song drew to an end. The children turned to look at him and giggled. They continued to sing happily, enjoying every moment of it. Orissa clapped along to the beat, and they joyfully made their way to Yaleview. Darius had not returned to Old Manor, and he was playing chess in the living room with Edwin. "Grandpa, why are you still playing chess?" The children ran over to Darius when they saw he was still playing the game. Darius hugged them and patted their heads affectionately. "You're back. How's your great-grandaunt? Is she feeling better?" "Yes, she's feeling much better. We took her for a stroll in the park with Mommy." "What about your daddy? Didn't he accompany your great-grandaunt?" Darius threw a glance at Benjamin, who had just entered the house. He saw Benjamin on the phone, and he frowned. "Grandpa, Mr. Graham did keep great-grandaunt company together with us." Tim spoke up for Benjamin so that there would be no misunderstanding. Darius chuckled, and he asked, could it be that he was on the phone the entire time? "Grandpa, Daddy answered a total of 5 calls." Gavin gave Darius an accurate answer. Orissa secretly glanced at Benjamin. She did not even know how many calls he answered, but their son watched him and remembered. Benjamin huffily threw a glare at his son, and he snorted. "You say that I didn't keep Grandaunt company, yet you noticed how many calls I took." "HMPH. Who says I didn't spend time with great-grandaunt? It was you who kept answering calls." Gavin pursed his lips, and he was not afraid of Benjamin's threat. Darius then reprimanded Benjamin, "You should talk to Mary or at least check on her when you go to visit them at the hospital. How can you keep answering your phone?" Upon getting berated, Benjamin listened obediently and nodded his head. "Okay, I will take note and do that next time." Orissa looked at him in surprise. He didn't argue with Dad. Benjamin's eyes glinted when he noticed her gaze, and he stared straight at her. Orissa flashed him a smile and did not say anything. Seeing that Darius's attention was all on playing with the children, Benjamin took her hand and went upstairs. "What were you trying to say just now?" Orissa cast a glance at him. "Nothing." Benjamin arched an eyebrow and shot her a sidelong glance. He did not believe her. "You looked quite surprised just now." Orissa smirked quietly. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "I was a bit surprised that you didn't argue with Dad just now." The corners of Benjamin's mouth twitched, and he cleared his throat lightly. "I got to set an example in front of the children, don't I?" Their children did not treat him with a lot of respect. What if they mimic my behavior and argue with me? Chapter 1142. Regan and Heather were there when Miranda returned home. Her parents exchanged glances with each other when they saw her slump on the couch gloomily. "What's wrong? Who upset you?" Heather poured a glass of water for Miranda and sat next to her. Miranda looked at her mother and took the glass of water. She sipped on it before complaining, "Mom, I saw Orissa again." Heather frowned, and she looked at Regan. Regan asked anxiously, "Where did you see her? That good-for-nothing hasn't come home once even though she has been back for so long." "Mom, do you know what else I saw?" Miranda was still bewildered and extremely jealous. It made sense why Benjamin paid no attention to her at all. "What did you see?" Heather was very curious. She wanted to know more about Orissa, so she could deal with the latter better. Regan was also curious. His eyes were fixed on Miranda, and he wanted to know what new information she had. After Miranda took another sip of water and adjusted her riled-up emotions, she explained, "I saw 6 children calling Marissa, that bitch, their mommy." Miranda was astounded when she saw those 6 children calling Marissa their mother. She would have suspected that they were children Marissa knew from an orphanage or somewhere else if they did not look identical. Most importantly, the children looked remarkably similar to Benjamin. It was publicly known that Benjamin had one son, and not that he had 5 other children. However, they appeared like an intimate family to her. It was truly shocking for her to see Benjamin's children calling her mother. It made sense why Benjamin treated Arissa so well. How could he not treat her well if she was indeed the biological mother of his children? "What did you say?" Both Heather and Regan stared at their daughter in shock as they thought they were hearing things. Arissa gave birth to 6 children. Those 6 children look exactly the same, and they all call Arissa, Mommy. The thought of Arissa giving birth to 6 kids at once appalled Miranda. How can someone give birth to 6 children in one go? Could it be that your eyes were playing a trick on you? Can that bitch, Arissa, even give birth to 6 children? My God, are they sextuplets? Heather couldn't believe it. That's right, Mira, are you sure you didn't see it wrong? Maybe your sister is a teacher, and those kids are just calling her Mommy because they are close to her. Regan found it hard to believe and thought it was impossible. I have met Arissa a few times, and she didn't mention anything about children. Miranda knew that they might not believe her. She took out her phone and showed them a photo she had secretly taken. Take a look for yourselves. I saw it with my own eyes and heard them call Arissa their mommy. Miranda was able to secretly take a photo as there were no bodyguards around this time. The picture was taken from a distance, but the 6 children looked similar in age. What else could they be if they weren't sextuplets? They snuggled up intimately against Arissa's thighs, and they looked happy as they chatted. Regan and Heather were stunned and in disbelief at what they were seeing. Did that good-for-nothing really give birth? She didn't even tell me. Regan's face was twisted with anger. Arissa was oblivious that she was currently being cursed by the York family. She finished bathing under Benjamin's watch. Arissa then called the children up to take a shower and head to bed. The 6 children said their goodnights to Darius and happily followed their mom upstairs to take a bath. Mommy, we want to sleep with you tonight. Jessie clung to Arissa's thigh when they were done showering. Arissa stroked her daughter's hair affectionately and uttered softly, "Of course." Hearing that, Gavin, Tim, Zachary, Oliver, and Jasper ran excitedly to the master bedroom with their pillows. Benjamin went to the study after showering, and he was not in the bedroom. Overjoyed, the children urged, "Mommy, hurry up." Chapter 1143. I'm coming. Arissa hurriedly made her way over, wearing a doting expression on her face. She didn't lie down on the bed until the children were all settled in bed. Immediately, the 6 children crowded around her, sticking close to her side. "Mommy." The 6 children chimed in unison, their faces filled with joy. Arissa's heart melted as she embraced the children in her arms. She lowered her head and planted gentle kisses on each of their foreheads. "It's time to sleep. Good night, Mommy." The 6 children also leaned over to kiss Arissa. "Good night, Mommy." With a loving smile on her face, Arissa hugged the children tightly, gently caressing them. "Good night, sweethearts." The 6 children snuggled up to her, either hugging her neck, clinging to her arms, or clutching her pajamas. Their bodies felt soft, and their sweet scent filled the air, evoking a strong desire within Arissa to hug them even tighter. Arissa wrapped the quilt around the children, holding them close in a warm embrace. She felt a deep sense of contentment at that moment. "Mummy, don't we need to wait for Mr. Graham?" Benjamin's figure suddenly crossed Tim's mind, and he looked toward the door in anticipation of Benjamin's arrival. Arissa smiled and gently pinched the little boy's nose. "Daddy is still busy, sweetheart. Let's go to bed first." Danny stared at her, his face broke into a grin as he nodded. "All right." Arissa rubbed the heads of the children and tucked them to sleep. Even after the children had all fallen asleep, Benjamin had yet to come upstairs. Arissa, finding it difficult to sleep, decided to get out of bed and go downstairs to see what was keeping him. Benjamin and Ethan held a video conference in the study. After the conference ended, they still had some work-related matters to discuss. Orissa discreetly peeked through the door and then quietly made her way to the kitchen. She prepared 2 glasses of milk and gathered some finger food before carefully bringing them to the study. She gently knocked on the door, waiting for Benjamin to give her a signal before entering the study with the food in hand. "Mrs. Graham," Ethan greeted her with the utmost respect. He had always been very polite to her. Orissa smiled. "Are you guys done yet? Have something to eat. There are still a few reports to discuss." "Thank you, Mrs. Graham." Ethan acknowledged as he accepted the glass of milk from Orissa. Orissa also placed a glass of milk in front of Benjamin and gently reminded him, "It's getting late. If the matters are non-urgent, why don't you address them tomorrow? Ethan has been working hard all day. Let him rest early." Benjamin frowned, feeling a little jealous. "Are you showing concern for him?" Seeing the man's jealousy, Orissa was speechless. She said with a smile, "Of course, I care about you too." Ethan stood to the side, quietly enjoying his snack and staying out of the conversation. He didn't want to provoke Benjamin. "Have some snacks and then drink the milk," Orissa said, extending the snacks toward Benjamin. She felt a sense of sympathy for his hard work. Benjamin felt a slight uplift in his heart and decided to take a short break. "Are the children all asleep?" "Yes, they're all sound asleep now. They were just talking about you earlier and expressing their wish for you to rest early," Orissa informed him, emphasizing the children's concern for their father. Benjamin offered a piece of snack to Orissa's mouth. However, she gently shook her head and declined, saying, "I don't want to eat. I've just brushed my teeth." "It's okay." Benjamin fed the snack to her mouth again. Orissa noticed Ethan's unwavering gaze fixed on her, which made her feel slightly self-conscious. She shyly smiled and evaded Benjamin's attempt to hand her a snack again. "You two can continue with your work. Make sure to rest early. I will go to bed first," Orissa said. She looked at Benjamin and hurried out of the study. Benjamin's eyes closely followed Orissa's figure as she made her way to the door, only tearing his gaze away when she disappeared from sight. Noticing that Ethan kept eating the snacks, Benjamin glared at him. Feeling the intense pressure from Benjamin's glare, Ethan's hands paused midair, and he chuckled. "This pie tastes really good." Ever since the arrival of the new mistress in the Graham residence, there had consistently been a presence of delectable food. Although good food was available before, it had become more common and readily accessible. Ethan now enjoyed the luxury of having delicious meals more frequently. "It's so great to have Mrs. Graham here. This is a special snack made by the butler for my wife." "I'm sure it's delicious," Benjamin commented with a slight snort. He then urged Ethan in a deep voice, "Hurry up and finish your tasks so that we can retire early." Ethan swiftly swallowed the last bite in his mouth and responded, "Okay." Chapter 1144. When Benjamin finished his work and came upstairs, Orissa had already fallen asleep. Benjamin changed into his nightclothes, approached the bed, and gently lifted the quilt as he settled himself beside Orissa in silence. However, his movement still woke her up. Orissa glanced at Benjamin with sleepy eyes and murmured, "You are done?" "Yes," Benjamin replied softly, wrapping his arms around her and pulling the quilt back. He leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. Orissa snuggled closer to Benjamin, and within moments, she drifted back into a peaceful sleep. Benjamin looked at the 6 children next to him, frowned, and carefully adjusted the quilt to cover them. Benjamin was content to be wrapped in the warmth of his family. Benjamin was gradually lured off by the gentle snores of his family and soon drifted off into a slumber. In the middle of the night, Benjamin was abruptly awakened by the sensation of being stepped on by one of the children. Jasper, with a full bladder, was clumsily crawling out of the bed from Benjamin's side. Benjamin's eyes fluttered open, and he saw the clumsy movement of the little boy. He quickly lifted Jasper off and had him in his arms. "Did you step on your mommy?" Benjamin whispered. He looked at Orissa and noticed that she was still asleep. "No." Jasper rubbed his eyes as he walked toward the bathroom, half asleep. Concerned that Jasper might bump into something, Benjamin tucked Orissa snugly under the blanket and swiftly followed him to ensure his safety. After Jasper finished urinating, Benjamin helped him wash his hands thoroughly before carrying him back to the bedroom. However, Danny and Jesse also woke up needing to use the bathroom. Worried that they might disturb Orissa, Benjamin hurried over to assist them. "Wait a moment, Daddy will carry you." Benjamin gently placed Jasper down and extended his arms to lift Danny and Jesse. After the two children finished using the bathroom, Benjamin carried them back to their beds. "Go back to sleep now." Benjamin looked at the other three children and pondered for a moment. Then, Benjamin gently woke up Oliver and Zachary, carrying them in his arms to the bathroom for them to pee. The two boys, still half asleep, protested with small tantrums. Their little faces scrunched up in distress, and their eyes didn't even open. Benjamin had no choice but to patiently hold their pants, waiting for Oliver and Zachary to finish peeing. Once they were done, he carefully carried them back to their beds and tucked them in. Benjamin didn't even wake Gavin up. He carried him directly into the bathroom, assisting him in peeing while still asleep like he did when Gavin was still a baby. The boy peed in his dream. After ensuring that all the children were settled and asleep, Benjamin finally took a moment to use the bathroom himself before slipping back into bed. Orissa turned over and wrapped her arms around Benjamin. Benjamin looked down at the sleeping woman and gently pinched her nose. "Do you want to get up and use the bathroom too?" Orissa stirred in her sleep, shifting to face away from Benjamin. She pulled the child closer, finding a more comfortable position before settling back into a peaceful slumber. Benjamin turned on his side and gently wrapped his arms around Orissa before continuing to sleep. The next morning, Orissa woke up with a full bladder. Noticing that Benjamin had his arm wrapped around her, she carefully pulled the man's arm away to free herself, but as she moved, Benjamin's grip tightened, refusing to let her go. She repeated the gesture several times but still couldn't free herself from Benjamin's grip. Orissa's need to use the bathroom grew more urgent, and she decided that she couldn't wait any longer. She pulled Benjamin's hand away with more force and got up. In the next second, Benjamin pulled her into his arms again. A sleepy voice resonated in her ears, "Go back to sleep." Orissa didn't know whether to laugh or sigh. She persisted in nudging him a few more times and said, "I really need to use the bathroom." Benjamin opened his eyes, glancing at her with a sleepy expression. He then got up and carried her to the bathroom. Orissa looked at the sleepy man. "I can go by myself. You should go back to sleep." Benjamin carried her directly to the bathroom before settling her down. Then, he turned around to brush his teeth. Orissa was rendered speechless by his response. "Is he awake?" She quickly emptied her bloated bladder and checked the time. It was getting late. "Aren't you going to go back to sleep?" "I'm wide awake now." Benjamin glanced at the woman in the mirror while brushing his teeth. Orissa proceeded to wash her hands and looked outside. The children were still sleeping. "I will wake them up." Orissa walked out of the bathroom and woke the children. "Sweethearts, it's time to wake up." She leaned over and patted the children's butts through the quilt. Chapter 1145. The children flipped onto their sides and refused to get out of bed, save for Danny, who had propped himself up. He was still a little bleary as he sat on the bed, and the way he rubbed his eyes was so endearing that Orissa could not look away. Her heart softened, and she reached out to ruffle the little boy's hair. "Get up and go brush your teeth, sweetheart." "Okay," Danny answered sleepily as a yawn escaped him. "Mommy, would you mind waking the others?" Orissa could not resist hugging him and planting a kiss on his cheek. "All right, but only if you go and wake your sister up." "Okay." Danny perked up instantly and quickly climbed over to Jess's side of the bed, then called out gently, "Hey, Jessie, it's time to wake up." "Jessie." Orissa chuckled and went on to wake her other sons. "Come on, sleepyheads, it's time to get up. You don't want to be late for school." Jasper managed to sit up, but he lasted about 3 seconds before he fell back onto the bed. With his eyes still closed, he grumbled, "5 more minutes, Mommy." Gavin, Zachary, and Tim were still yawning and dozing off in spite of their efforts to wake up. Orissa laughed. "What in the world did you boys do last night? Why are you all so tired?" She pinched the boy's cheeks, then said, "Hurry up and go get washed up." The three boys blinked away the last of their sleep, then slowly and reluctantly got out of bed. Then, having obediently put on their slippers, they padded toward the bedroom door. Amused, Orissa reminded teasingly, "Keep your eyes open while you walk, boys, or you'll bump into things." Seeing that Jessie was still asleep, Orissa reached down to pick the little girl up, then said to the other two boys, "Danny, Jasper, go wash up." Danny quickly tugged on Jasper's arm. "Jasper, hurry, Mommy's waiting for us." Jasper, who was half asleep, peered around and saw that Orissa was, indeed, waiting for them. Resigned, he finally sat up in bed. The boys quickly put on their slippers and followed Orissa out of the room, then returned to their own bedrooms to wash up. Presently, Orissa was wiping Jess's face with a damp cloth while trying to wake her. "Jessie, you can brush your teeth yourself, can't you?" "Mommy." Jessie wrapped her arms around her mother's neck as she mumbled lazily, "I still want to sleep." Laughing, Orissa pinched Jess's cheek and said softly, "No, you can't sleep anymore or you'll be late for school." Jessie pouted, "I don't want to go to school. I want to stay home with Mommy." Orissa smiled and shook her head good-naturedly. Jess has been going to school with her brothers for a while now, so why is she still so against it? "Your brothers will be at school, and you'll be bored if you stay home on your own. Besides, I have work to do, too." Orissa cajoled the child and kissed the little girl's cheek. Jessie let out a huff of dismay. She was being clingy, but that was only because she had just woken up. At that moment, Benjamin walked over and plucked Jessie out of Orissa's arms. "Here, let me hold her while you go wash up," he offered. Orissa glanced at him briefly, then at the little girl who did not seem as clingy as she had been earlier. "She's more manageable now." With that in mind, Orissa laughed and said, "All right, then. Keep an eye on the kids while I wash up." Benjamin nodded. He held Jessie in one arm and took her toothbrush with his free hand, then brushed her teeth for her. As for the boys, they stood in a single file line and brushed their teeth without any prompting. Orissa's gaze was soft as she watched the children wash up. After a while, she returned to the bedroom to go about her own business. Jessie dared not wriggle around while Benjamin was brushing her teeth. When he was done, he said, "I'll wipe your face now." "Mommy already did it for me," Jessie muttered quietly. Benjamin chuckled but went on to wipe Jess's face anyway. Then, he put her down on the floor and turned to the boys. "I might as well wipe yours, too." The boys eyed him warily. Then, Gavin, Danny, and Zachary quickly washed their own faces. Jasper and Tim, however, were held in place by Benjamin. He was a little rough when he wiped their faces, and they could not help frowning. "Ow! You're scraping my skin, Mr. Graham," Jasper complained. Benjamin's brows furrowed at this. His motions were a little gentler after that. Following this, he rinsed the towel, wrung it out, then helped the three other boys dry the water droplets on their faces. "Get changed," Benjamin ordered. The boys cast him a sidelong glance, then hurried out of the bathroom to do as they were told. Chapter 1146. After changing into fresh clothing, Orissa had only just come out of the walk-in closet when she saw Benjamin and the kids waiting for her in the room. She smiled. Her gaze lingered on the kids and their father. The kids were already dressed in uniform, and they had their backpacks slung over their shoulders, too. "Are you guys ready?" she asked. She didn't think they would get ready in the short time she spent washing up. Jasper grinned. "Yeah, Mommy, we've been waiting for you for a while now." "Mommy, it's time for breakfast," Tim prompted. Gavin, Danny, Zachary and Jessie were all beaming at her. "Okay." Orissa walked up to them and rubbed their heads lovingly. Benjamin carried Jessie in one arm and reached for Orissa's hand with his free one. "Let's go," he said, leading her out the door. Orissa smiled and responded with a hum, then called out to the other kids, "Come on, boys. Let's have breakfast together." The boys rushed forward and took the lead, but they occasionally glanced back to make sure Orissa and Benjamin were following them. Orissa's eyes were filled with tender warmth as she looked at the kids. When she noticed them looking over their shoulders, she reminded, eyes forward, sweethearts. I don't want you to trip. Hee hee. The boys chuckled sheepishly and looked ahead, then made their way carefully down the stairs. Benjamin glanced at the 5 children, and upon seeing how cautious they were in going down the steps, he smiled. When they reached the hall downstairs, the kids set their bags aside. Jessie wanted to walk on her own, too, so Benjamin bent down to put her on the ground. Wait up, Jessie called out after her brothers as she tried to catch up to them. Hurry up, Jasper turned around and said to her. Danny and Zachary stopped in their tracks to wait for her. We'll wait here, don't worry. Delighted, Jessie giggled and bounded up to her 2 big brothers. She eyed them with admiration as she said appreciatively, thanks, Gavin and Danny. Danny even reached out to take her bag for her. Come on, I'll bring this over for you. Thank you, Jessie said gratefully, flashing her adorable dimples. Danny beamed. Don't mention it. He stared at Jess's little face. She's so pretty. Gavin was charmed by her as well. He tousled her hair and said, You're really pretty, Jessie. This made Jessie giggle even more. At that moment, she looked like a little cherub, so beautiful and bright that it was hard to take one's eyes off her. Will you guys hurry up? Zachary had put his bag aside at this point, and when he saw Gavin and Danny grinning at Jessie like idiots, he could not help calling out to them in good humor. On one side of the room, Benjamin and Orissa waited patiently for the kids. There was no hiding the love in their eyes. Orissa urged, Put your bags away before we have breakfast. The kids quickly did as they were told, then ran up to her and reported, We're done, Mommy. To the dining room, then. Orissa declared gently. The kids turned and headed into the dining room obediently. Benjamin held Orissa's hand and led her to the dining room. There, the family sat down at the table and dug into their breakfast. Just then, an uninvited guest started making noise at the front door. Who's making all that ruckus outside the door? Orissa asked, peering at the entryway in confusion. She had no idea who was on the other side of the front door. Benjamin looked grim. Stay here, Mr. Graham. I'll go take a look, Edwin said as he hurried to check out the noise. Let's eat. Benjamin gave Orissa and the children their helpings. A moment later, Edwin returned to the dining room and told Benjamin meaningfully, Mr. Graham, that woman's here. Benjamin's gaze darkened, and a dangerous look registered on his handsome features. Orissa glanced at the 2 men and asked quietly, Who? Benjamin gave her a grim look and answered, Brian and Nick's mother. Orissa was stunned. She had never seen Zachary and Tim's mother in the Graham family before, and she simply assumed the woman was no longer around. The woman's sudden arrival was bewildering, considering Darius was not even home. I'll chase her away right now, Mr. Graham, Edwin said, heading out of the room. Unexpectedly, Benjamin leaned into his seat and ordered sullenly, Let her in. I'd like to know just what the hell she's doing here. Chapter 1147. Patricia Reynolds followed Edwin into the house, but she was asked to wait in the foyer while Benjamin, Orissa and the kids ate breakfast in the dining room. Please wait here, Miss Reynolds. Mr. Graham is still eating breakfast, Edwin explained curtly, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. As far as he was concerned, Benjamin's mother was the only Mrs. Graham in the family. He frankly did not regard Brian and Nick's biological mother with any fondness. Nonetheless, Edwin poured Patricia a glass of water, then set it on the coffee table. Let it not be said that Benjamin's household staff was lacking in proper courtesy. Patricia looked in the direction of the dining room. From where she sat, she could see Benjamin and his family having breakfast in there. She grimaced when none of them bothered to come out and greet her. Rude, insolent child. In any case, I'm still Benjamin's elder. He should at least greet me. Edwin side-eyed Patricia, then turned and headed into the dining room. Eat up. Presently, Benjamin was giving Orissa more helpings of breakfast and encouraging her to eat more. Orissa looked at him curiously. Seeing that he was eating nonchalantly and had no plans to acknowledge Patricia's presence, she followed suit. After all, Patricia was not someone important. They were under no obligation to greet her. Eat up, kids, Orissa said to the children. She gave them helpings of food when she caught them glancing curiously in the living room's direction. It was only then that they turned their attention back to their breakfast. "Mommy, can I have some more of that, please? It's yummy," Jasper said, nodding at one of the dishes on the table. Orissa gave him an extra helping and asked gently, "Is that enough?" "I can give you some more if you'd like." He giggled happily and adjusted the glasses on his little face. "This is enough, Mommy." "Thank you." He began to eat heartily. "Mommy, I want what Jasper got," Jessie piped up, her mouth watering as she stared at the food. "Okay, here you go." Orissa gave Jessie a helping, too, then watched with a gentle gaze as the children ate. Meanwhile, in the living room, Patricia was growing sullen after her presence had been ignored for 10 minutes. She heard noises coming from the dining room, but it seemed as if everyone, especially Benjamin, was intent on leaving her alone. She would never have come here if she didn't have a favor to ask of Benjamin. If her son were not in prison now, she would not have been so desperate as to come here and humiliate herself. She was furious and resentful, but with Benjamin being the current head of the Graham family, she had no choice but to drop by his house and see him personally. When over 10 minutes had passed and no one came out to greet her, Patricia could no longer stand being ignored. She rose impatiently and stormed over to the dining room. Even though her blood was boiling, she tried not to blow her top as she called out in a forced and affectionate manner, "Benjamin." Benjamin glanced at her sideways, then asked in a distant tone, "What is it?" Patricia looked at everyone who was seated at the table. None of them greeted her, and as furious as she was, she could not help feeling awkward. "Benjamin," she tried again with a tight smile. "Your brother has been in prison for a while now, and I'm sure he's suffered plenty to make up for his wrongdoings. Do you think maybe you could forgive him?" Benjamin's expression was grim, but he was not at all surprised that Patricia's business here had to do with Nick. "Forgive him," Benjamin repeated darkly, his gaze sharp as a blade. A shiver ran down Patricia's spine. She reminded herself that she was the elder here and tried not to look intimidated. For her son's sake, she would have to plead with Benjamin. "We're all family at the end of the day. In any case, Nick's your half-brother. At his age, if he keeps getting roughed up in prison like that, he'll end up with some serious issues. He was sick last night, did you know that? Please get them to release him. I'm sure he's learned his lesson by now." A smirk tugged on Benjamin's lips as he eyed Patricia menacingly. "He never saw me as his family," he countered sharply. She took a step back when she saw the murderous gleam in his eyes, which made her blood run cold. "Don't ever come here and bother us again," Benjamin snarled. He looked away from Patricia and went back to giving Orissa more food. Thud. Patricia fell to her knees at that moment as she cried, "I'm begging you, Benjamin. Please let Nick go. Forgive him and have him released from prison before he dies in there." Orissa was shocked. A stormy look passed over Benjamin's face. Chapter 1148. Orissa quickly pulled Benjamin up by the arm and half-dragged him away from Patricia, then glared at the older woman as she snapped, "How dare you get on your knees before my husband? Are you trying to blackmail him emotionally?" If one did not know better, one might think Benjamin had been torturing Patricia and her sons. Benjamin was pleased to see Orissa being protective over him. For a moment, his anger disappeared as he said soothingly, "Honey, there's no need to get angry over this. Everything's all right." Patricia stared at them, and for a second, she wasn't sure if she should stand or continue kneeling. She decided to appease Orissa. Still on her knees, she turned so that she could look at Benjamin and Orissa directly. "I wasn't trying to emotionally blackmail him. I only wanted him to forgive Nick. Benjamin, please stop putting Nick through this torture." Benjamin wrapped his arm around Orissa's shoulders and turned her away from Patricia. He looked back at the older woman icily and bit out, "There's no point in begging on your knees. Nick was punished under the law for his wrongdoings, and I can't do anything about it. Go back before Dad comes home and thinks I'm picking on you again." He did not want to see Patricia at all, and the contempt was clear in his dark gaze. Hatred flashed in Patricia's eyes. She gritted her teeth, then bowed so suddenly and with such force that her head hit the floor. Her forehead was bleeding as she begged, "Benjamin, you don't even know how much Nick has suffered in there. He's in rough shape, and he's terribly sick. I'll do anything you ask of me if you let him go. Don't make me watch my son die in prison." She was wailing and sobbing miserably, and her hair was mussed. She looked like a pathetic mess. Arissa's lips pressed into a thin line. She had to admit, Patricia's emotional display was a moving one, but she knew better than to feel sorry for the woman. Arissa was a mother who loved her children and would do anything for them. To that end, she could empathize with Patricia. However, Nick was a criminal, and if Benjamin were to accede to Patricia's request and have him released from prison, then that would be putting all their lives at risk. After all, there was no telling when Nick would strike again and endanger them. "Don't even think about emotionally blackmailing my husband. Your son is a criminal who nearly killed all of us. He would never have done that had he thought of Benjamin as his brother. Since he committed those crimes, justice demands that he pay the price for them." Arissa seethed. She thought about how Nick had nearly killed her and her family, and she just could not bring herself to feel sorry for Patricia. Patricia stopped crying at once. She glared at Arissa venomously and snapped, "How could you be so heartless? Did my son actually end up killing you?" "No, he was framed by someone else. He wasn't the one who put you all in danger." "Ha, heartless. I don't think any of us here is as heartless as your darling Nick. He had planned to kill us that day, and he very nearly got away with it. The judge couldn't be so stupid as to sentence an innocent man to prison, so if you think Nick was framed, then why don't you appeal on his behalf? You didn't have to show up here with a pointless sob story. Your son committed a crime against us, and we're supposed to forgive him just because he didn't get away with attempted murder. He wouldn't be locked behind bars if he hadn't tried to kill us first. Stop trying to gain our pity and tell Nick to be on his best behavior while in prison. Maybe then he'd be lucky enough to get out early." The color drained from Patricia's face, and as angry as she was, she could not find the words to retort. "Show her out, Edwin," Benjamin ordered the butler grimly. Edwin stood in front of Patricia and said impassively, "If you please, Miss Reynolds." "Benjamin, are you really not going to forgive Nick?" Patricia's eyes were wide with fury as she glowered at Benjamin. She was still on her knees. Benjamin shot her a shrewd look and pointed out coldly, "Whether I forgive him or not is my business. He was the one who did the crime." Arissa and the children had been in the car when the incident happened, but that did not matter to Nick at all. In the grand scheme of things, he had intended to murder the children alongside Arissa and Benjamin. If Benjamin forgave Nick this time and simply let the latter go free, he would not be able to give the kids justice. If anything, he had been too lenient with Nick prior to throwing the latter into prison. That was why Nick thought he could walk all over Benjamin and test his limits. "Leave." Edwin dispensed with the courtesy and hauled Patricia to her feet, then dragged her to the door. "Benjamin, are you going to just let Nick die in prison?" Patricia shouted over her shoulder, but before she could get another sentence in, she was shoved out of the house. Chapter 1149. Arissa looked at Benjamin and picked up some food for him. "Hurry up and eat. We need to send the kids to school in a while." Glancing at her, Benjamin nodded. He had regained his composure. "I'm fine." The children were worried upon seeing the upset expression on their father's face. When Benjamin met their concerned gazes, he felt glad. After having breakfast, Benjamin drove them to school together with Arissa. He needed to go to the office after that. "Do you want to go home or come to the office with me?" he asked Arissa. Arissa's eyes lit up. "I'll go to the company," she said without even bothering to give it some thought. Recently, she had been either at home or at the hospital. She was on the verge of getting bored to death. It had never crossed her mind that Benjamin would bring her to the company. Of course, she would want to go with him. Or else, she would only be sleeping if she were to go back home. With a faint smile, Benjamin leaned closer to her and buckled her seatbelt. "Okay, but don't work." Arissa looked at him and couldn't take her eyes off his distinctive facial features. When Benjamin sensed her stare, his smile turned deeper. He continued with his driving and didn't stop her. Upon reaching the company entrance, Arissa was about to get down the car after unfastening her seatbelt. However, Benjamin pulled her to him. She felt like she bumped into something soft. It wasn't until she raised her head that Benjamin locked her lips with his. His familiar breath sped up Arissa's heartbeat. She couldn't help immersing herself in the passionate kiss. They were so into the kiss that they didn't notice the situation outside. Only when Arissa got out of the car and met Kingsley's teasing look did her face turn red. Her eyes darted around, too embarrassed to look at anyone. Even the bodyguard at the entrance seemed to know something and would gossip about them from time to time. With both his hands in his pockets, Kingsley teased mischievously, "Tisk, tisk. Boss, why are you showing off in the morning? On top of that, this is right in front of the entrance. Can't they hold themselves back?" Holding Arissa in his arm, Benjamin wasn't as embarrassed as her. He seemed to be a little satisfied instead. "Bachelors know nothing," he said smugly and cast a glance at Kingsley. The corners of Kingsley's mouth twitched. Gritting his teeth, he felt speechless as he watched the thick-skinned Benjamin entering the company with his wife. Arissa was somewhat impressed by him. Despite having their intimate interaction seen by others, he could still act normally and not feel embarrassed at all. "Don't do this again next time." She gently pinched Benjamin's waist. He pretended like he didn't understand her and whispered in her ear, "Don't do what?" His warm breath brushed past her earlobe and sent a tingling sensation down her body. Arissa's heart trembled, and she shrank back a little. However, Benjamin deliberately moved closer to her. His deep voice sounded flirtatious. Arissa was getting redder in the face. When she lowered her eyes in embarrassment, she looked extremely enthralling. Benjamin's gaze darkened. As soon as he entered the elevator with her, he pressed her against the wall panel and kissed her passionately. He didn't let her go even when the elevator doors had swished open. Arissa felt that someone was watching them, so she struggled a little and looked over. Right then, she met Ethan's widened eyes. She was so embarrassed that even her toes had turned red. She pushed Benjamin shyly. Someone saw it again. This is so awkward. When Benjamin caught sight of Ethan, he shot him a sharp gaze. Ethan trembled all over and turned around at once. He fixed his sight on the wall, not daring to look at Benjamin's eyes again. Walking out of another elevator, Kingsley noticed the awkward atmosphere between them. "What's wrong?" he asked with a smile. "Whoa, Mrs. Graham, why is your face so red? Could it be that Ethan caught you guys doing something in the elevator?" Arissa's lips twitched. "Can you don't be so sharp-witted? It's hot, okay." She glared at Kingsley and then flitted her fierce gaze to Benjamin before walking into the office in a hurry. "This is embarrassing." Chapter 1150. Kingsley burst into laughter so hard that he almost cried. He couldn't stifle it. Despite being in the office, Arissa could still hear it clearly. Her ears reddened even more. In the corridor, Benjamin flashed Kingsley a piercing gaze and strode toward the office. Kingsley held back his laughter. When Benjamin entered the office, Kingsley couldn't help chuckling again. Ethan showed Kingsley a thumb up, feeling impressed that Kingsley wasn't afraid that Benjamin would pursue the matter. Patting Ethan's shoulder, Kingsley said with sympathy, "Do you feel distressed seeing them flaunting their love every day? I understand how you feel, so hurry up and get a girlfriend." Ethan's lips twitched. "Mr. Watts, I'm not distressed at all. Why don't you find a girlfriend?" he retorted. He is a bachelor himself. How can he have the nerve to ask me to look for a girlfriend? Alas, there are too many women for a handsome man like me. I don't even know who to choose. Sighing, Kingsley brushed his hair to the back and walked to the office. Seeing that, Arissa was speechless, and so were Benjamin and Ethan. What a narcissist. The corners of Ethan's mouth twitched violently. As soon as Kingsley entered the office, Arissa asked curiously, "Mr. Watts, what kinds of women do you have? Do you need me to help you choose?" She smiled. They had known each other for quite some time, but Arissa had never seen Kingsley bringing a woman with him. She wondered if he was bragging about having a lot of women. Kingsley smiled. His eyes lit up as he looked at her. "Mrs. Graham, could it be that you're interested in women too?" As soon as he said that, he felt a chill behind his neck, and the atmosphere in the office suddenly became tense. The moment he turned around, he met Benjamin's sharp gaze and immediately explained, "I was just joking." He trembled slightly. Seeing how cowardly he looked, Orissa found it amusing. Sit here for a while. I need to attend a meeting now. If you're tired, you can go in and have a rest. Benjamin poured Orissa a glass of water and told Ethan to go to the meeting after preparing some cookies and fruits for her. Okay, go and get busy. It's not my first time here. Orissa smiled at him. Her office was also in the company. Stroking her head, he said, "Don't work behind my back. The laptop has radiation." Orissa nodded. "I got it." At the sight of them publicly showing their affection, Kingsley was rendered speechless. When Kingsley saw that Benjamin was going to the meeting without attending to him, he immediately called, "Boss, I have something to say." Sparing a glance at him, he said, "Shoot. If there's nothing urgent, you can buzz off." Kingsley blinked his eyes as if he were about to cry. "Boss, how could you be so heartless? Can't I look for you even if there's nothing urgent? Don't you want me anymore? My life is at stake, but you aren't even saving me." Orissa's eyes brightened as she watched Kingsley tugging at Benjamin's hem while sobbing. It was hard not to wonder about their relationship upon seeing such a scene. When Benjamin sensed his wife's attention on them, he immediately tore off his hem and distanced himself from Kingsley. His expression darkened. "Spit it out." Benjamin was so livid that his words were harsh. Kingsley turned to cast Orissa a glance and pulled Benjamin to one side. Seeing that Benjamin was frowning with a murderous gaze, he immediately loosened his grip. Smiling sheepishly, he lowered his voice and said, "Boss, you have to help me. My grandpa was not amused with the status of my love life after seeing the kids in your house. He gave me the ultimatum this morning and said that if I don't bring home a girlfriend tonight, he will arrange a blind date for me. Didn't you say that you have a lot of women? Just simply choose one and bring her home." Benjamin replied coldly, "Damn, I bragged too much just now.